fine heater food. and this the vegetable soup was good, and it'd fill you up. I mean, it'd keep you warm with canned iced all day. And but that potato hash is kind of like dog food. That's what it looked like and what it smelled like. That you get in cans. And but then sometimes we got a K ration. It would feed 7 people. It had a pound can of bacon, and you could open that thing up and spread that bacon out and heat it, and it was good. And we had chocolate bars in it, and you could go half a day on one bite of that chocolate. It still had much energy stuff in it. And it had cheese, good cheese, and that sort of thing. Had that old instant coffee in the little cans, and if it got damp, it looked like dip snuff. Somebody been dip snuff. And it was strong, but we were going across France and Germany. Give us 5-minute break, and somebody be out there with a can of coffee in a helmet over a helmet full of fire, and cooking it, eating it.
So, the food was adequate. How about the other supplies? Plenty of those.
Well, we were ready for the war, though. We'd run out of ammunition and gas, and they took us off the line and took our trucks and made what they call the Red Ball Express. Our truck had a relief driver, and they had running from the coast all the way up to where the front lines were, and kept them busy. I mean, we was running faster than we was getting ahead of our supplies, and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I remember one time down below St. Louis, boy had a 30-gallon drum sitting on a fire, washing his clothes. And I looked at it, and it's boiling, and I said, "Where'd you get that water?" He said, "That ain't water, that's gas." Boy, I got him chewed out in a hurry, and I told him to get away there. If one spark had got up there in them fumes, it'd have blew about killed the whole outfit from concussion. I chewed him out. He didn't like it, but I don't care. He's in danger. He'd have blown a hole you could touch his house in.
You saved some lives that day.
Yeah, but there's some crazy things happen like that.
Yeah. So other than your first-hand observations, how did you learn what was going on in the war?
Well, I didn't realize at first. See, we didn't have any news about attack in Japan. We didn't get that news, and the only thing, all I know, I thought we were the only ones that fighting. Then come to find out, we had a front down in Italy, in Africa, and then in Iwo Jima and all that, and sort of thing. But I don't know. We just gathered up whatever we could. And I had a brother-in-law, when I got elected, he came to see us. One of my wife's sisters had married a boy from out west, not Nebraska, but a little further out there. And I had a brand new P-38 pistol I picked up. I gave it to him. He carried it all the way back to the States and put it in his duffel bag, went in to get his discharge, come out, and the guy that knew he had it got it. Wow. And I had a cousin, he was in the 30th Infantry Division, and he's a medico. He came to see me in Aachen, Germany, and I got my supply sergeant to give me a new uniform. He was covered in mud. And I had a $5 bill from America. I gave it to him. And he was like a brother. We grew up together. But some of those things that we moved on. When I was a boy, about 6 years old, I dreamed about seeing this. A little biplane came over, looked like a Stinson, and we could see the guy head setting up in. He had about about 1,000 feet or 2,000 feet in the air. And that night I dreamed about seeing the sky full of planes, one bunch right after the other, like flocks of birds. And when we got to order, we were south of St. Louis, and we got to order that morning, and I heard the rumbling noise. We thought we were going to have a tank attack, and they got to order fire, and red smoke and marked front lines, and it get louder and louder, and then all of a sudden here you were, B-52 bombers, P-47 fighters escorting, and we were so close to the front lines that one of them dropped his bum short and threw dirt all over us, run the infantry off, and you could count 13 bums out of which those B-52s. They said 13, and looked like one got hit on the bum beds and with a piece as big as a man come down. Some people caught parachutes and heard the Germans machine gun them as they come down. It made chills right over you. But anyhow, that dream come true, and the ground was shaking and flak was falling around, and I was out in the field shooting and playing. Man, that was great. We were winning the war, and I looked, there wasn't nobody in the field but me. I ran and jumped in by Fox Hole and landed on Everett Griffin from a boy down from Monroe out there down towards Cleveland, South Carolina, down south, Lancaster, South Carolina. I told him, get out of that hole. He said, any time it's like this. I said, go get in your own hole. But it was a beautiful dream, and it came true. I got to see it. And I'll tell you, the sky was lit up with tracer bullets and planes, and it had dropped their bombs and circled back to England, and right behind them was another squadron, and one after the other, just like that. There's P-47 to go down and a nose dive and release their bomb, and you could hear them change the pitch of that propeller and shoot right straight back up, and the dirt would fall back up the sky.
Wow.
So he looked like he was gonna get hit with something else, but it was scary times.
Did you receive a lot of letters from home?
My wife wrote me regularly, not a lot, but she wrote me.
Did you have time to write her back?
Sometimes I did.
Okay.
Sometimes I didn't.
Did you give her all the details of what was going on?
No, you wasn't allowed.
Okay.
Our letters were censored.
Okay.
You write something, it'd be blotted out.
Okay.
We had the little V-mail, they call it something, a picture of the letter. And if you put something on there you weren't supposed to, boy, they put black across it. But they censored out. Every package I sent home, I had my captain had to sign it. He checked it, and I got a letter from my wife saying that Mr. Jones worked at the post office. His wife belonged to my home church, and they were telling, he was telling them about all the different things people were sending. I wasn't sending that, no. I stayed pretty busy, and so I just started anything I picked up I thought would interest them, I'd send it home. I sent 2 shotguns and 2 22 rifles home. I picked up, and then I sent some German knives and things we got from the dead Germans, but I should have done better. But when I got home, I let my oldest son's boys have them, and they got going. I might have something from over there, but it wasn't no fun.
Do you recall if you had any interaction? Did you meet people from the other countries there?
Well, let me tell you this. Our army captured a whole German staff, hospital staff, and there's a little town called Nordhauser, and in that little town was a 2-mile-long tunnels in the mountains, and had a small concentration camp there. And they, our planes bombed, and the guards ran away, and the people, and they had children in it. And they ran out in the field, and when the guards came back, they shot them right there, mowed them down, and then they left. And we moved in on Sunday, and the captain told me that we're gonna have the German staff come out there at that hospital that was in Nordhausen military, and said, "You're gonna put all these people in over there, and these doctor, the Surgeon General, all, and they're gonna have to take care of them people." And the people in town made out like they didn't even know that concentration camp was there, but you could smell it all over everything. We had a nurse come there, and she was going to make some pictures and set her tripod up, and then she had to just give it up and leave. I had a bunch of pictures made of that camp, and I had 100 and something copies made. And each man I gave him a copy to bring home with him. I said, people are not going to believe this. But he had burned corpse. He said in that one square grave they had ashes of 30,000.
Wow.
They'd pull the gold off them out of his teeth and all that, and feed the blood to their watchdogs, and starve them to death, and then people laying out there, and just skeletons with skin on them. And they had a bunk built, and they had 2 or 4 shells and burlap bags in it, and they put them, after they couldn't work them, they got support tire, or they wasn't able to, they'd lay them in there and leave them to die. And they'd turn over to hit the one above or one below. It was awful. And the captain came up and said, "Don't you want to go over and help out with that guard? Unloading them people." I said, "Oh yeah, I'd like to get out." So I went over there, and this one German, I noticed he kept watching me. And I watched him. I've seen him somewhere before. I don't know where we had captured him, in Cologne or what. But I regret I didn't stop off and make the interpreter talk to him. And he was from the States, or we had picked him up somewhere, and he knew me. I could tell he knew who I was, or had seen me before. And he kept watching me, and I had one boy, 2 of them grabbed one of those litters, and poor people still alive, and he dropped it. Had Germans scaring him, and one of my men took his carbine rifle and slapped him upside the head. I said, "Oh, you can't do that now, just cut that out." And after a while, one of our majors came by and said, "Sergeant," said, "You don't work that man." Said, "That's a Surgeon General." I said, "I didn't know one from the other." So we pulled him off the line, and they were unloading. We had a load of it was 2.5 ton trucks, a layer of litters, let the seats down, they had another layer of litters, and then another layer up here, and hauling them out of that thing. We made the people dig a grave, and we buried 300 and something bodies in one grave. And we just took the civilians, made them do it. But, I always wished I'd have took time to make that guy talk to me. See, we had a German interpreter with us, and it gives you the willingness to think about. But they had a dentist there in that 2-mile tunnels, and they had railroad tracks come out a little ways, and they were assembling those V1 and V2 rockets, and they were rolling them out on flat cars and sending them over England. They had 1 cylinder and fired just like a diesel, John Deere diesel, and they'd come over, and every time that thing would fire, it would lope like a mule loping. And as long as you could see them, you was all right. It's the one you couldn't see. But when the only way to control where it went, you could direct it to the city, but it didn't tell where it was going to hit, because it run out of fuel. That's when it went down, and it had bomb in the nose of it. And that's what they blitzed London with. And I saw that place, and I don't know, it just makes you chill thinking about those people. I mean, they had little children in that thing, and the political prisoners had stripes, like the chain gang used to have when I was a boy, and they only their stripes went round. And chain gang wore stripes, black and white. When I was a boy, they worked the roads in the prison camps. It was only in the prison camp they worked them on the roads, and I remember they had an old song, "So to feed me on cornbread and peas, I ain't gonna be treated this way." and I remember one day, I probably shouldn't tell this. One day, one of them, I got to know one of the boys, a chain gang boy, man. He's a local man, his name was Cumberson. And he said something to me, and I said something to him, and of course I was just a boy. And I called him Mister. And my daddy said, "Don't you call no black man Mister." And he chewed me out good. But I become kind of friends with him. I didn't know no difference. But that was back during the Depression days before my daddy died. But well, from there we went on across France. I was in the hedgerows. Before we got out of the hedgerows, I was walking along there one day, and it seemed like something said stop. And I stopped, and my foot was in the air to make the next step. And right where I'd have been standing, a burst of machine gun fire went by. I dropped to the ground, rolled over in the ditch, and the old boy Manning from Tennessee was there behind me. And I hollered at him to get down. He said, "Why?" And about that time they cut out at him with the same machine gun, I guess, and missed him. I didn't have to tell him to get down no more. But you could be on this hedgerows, they call it, around the fields, and you in this hedgerow behind it, and the Germans behind that field. I know one time as I had the sergeants with me tell him to put out the guards for the night before we were set up in a position there shooting, and I walked by the sniper in that hedgerow. I didn't see him. The next day, or 2 days later, he gave himself up. So he'd been laying there 3 days. We didn't have nothing but water. He could have killed either one of us, but if he did, he'd have got killed because see, all the rest of us was. But they had the tanks couldn't go over those hedgerows because the bottom was vulnerable, and they finally started putting bulldozer blades on the tanks. They opened up the hedgerows ways to get our trucks and stuff through. And they had been like Jeeps and over there. The Germans would just string a real tight wire across the road, and it'd cut your head off when you drove across. And so they put an iron up on the front, angle iron, and sawed a gap in it where when the wire come and caught it, it'd just pop it in two.
Wow.
And they had all kind of tricks. And booby traps and things. I remember one field there at Luxembourg. It was just, you could stand there and count hundreds of personnel bombs, and had a German tank sitting up there guarding it. Of course, they were already gone. Germans already left. But there's 3 wires sticking up, and if you hit one of them wires, that thing would jump up out of the ground and then blow up and kill several people around it. And a fella come out there with them little half-armor things, wasn't no armor to it much. And started to cross. It had it marked. I don't know what he meant. And just got in the edge of it and blew the wheel off of it. He crawled out of that thing and got out of there. I don't know. Some guys can be pretty done. But you have to watch out where you turn.
Okay.
Of course, we knew who we were fighting. It ain't like in Vietnam. They didn't know they'd fight you by day and by night and cut you and shave you the next day.
I'm still amazed at your recall of all this. I really am. So.
Well, I'm amazed at myself.
Tell us how do you describe the morale of your unit while you were there?
Well, it was pretty good. Sometimes we run up on a couple of corpses that they had killed him and took his wallet out and took stuff out and left it laying on his chest. And some of them wanted to go to the entry. I said, you need it right here. Just don't get excited about things. But we saw more of that before it was over with.
Okay.
I saw them burn up in tanks and that sort of thing.
Okay.
And I've seen corpse and bodies brought to the hospital. Only he had slits for his eyes and nose and mouth. He's just like a mummy. They got burned so bad. But see, they got to take a bottle of gasoline and a little mix of kerosene and put a wick in it and put some tar or something, and you hit the back end of a tank, and that gasoline explodes, set the tank on fire. And that sort of thing. I found when I first got on this thing, one night there, we set up and we were expecting a tank attack, and a German patrol must have infiltrated the battalion down below us. We heard them Germans screaming, "Kamerad!" Those little old carbines are killing them all.
If you would talk about the medals and citations that you received, all that you can remember for the video record.
What about it?
If you describe all your medals and your citations that you won in your time in the Army, all that you can remember.
Well, I didn't get it. They didn't have any citation. They just told me. They told me when I got discharged. They told me what I earned.
Yeah.
Now, I had the good conduct medal and the yellow ribbon medal with all that national. He's in service certain time, protecting the nation, and if I knew about the medal, they didn't make any citation. They didn't have any ceremony.
Did you receive any injuries as a result of the war?
No, only thing, I lost 60% of my hearing by being too close to one of the guns. And I got a little compensations of that, but I didn't get nothing until about 10 years ago, a little more. And now they've been so good to me about my medicine and giving me my medicine. I had low blood. I spent 5 days in the hospital at Fort Jackson with gastric stomach trouble, and I still had that problem. And then I got macular degeneration of the retina of the eyes. I still believe working on those grid sheets and brought up the sun, those sunglasses helped it. But I can't prove it, and they can't prove it then. So I get nothing for that.
So all total, how long were you in Europe during the war?
Altogether, I was overseas 18 months.
18 months. Now, when you got your orders to come back to the States, did you know at that point you were going to leave the service?
No, I didn't know.
Okay.
They were talking about us. Japan hadn't surrendered when it did. We were going to go to Japan right from there.
So you thought you might have had orders to go to the Pacific Theater?
Yeah. I was in Back Lane, Germany. Bill Griffin, a good friend of mine, when we had the chance to get to the rest and have a tent, he'd put them up, and he'd hit me while I was doing the other duties. And he and I were in a little place called Back Lane, Germany, at the service railroad station. That's the name of it. I had some pictures of me and him there at Back Lane, and then that's when I first heard Japan had surrendered. But we were getting ready to go to Japan. South Pacific.
So when you came back from Europe, came back to the United States, where did you land?
I landed in New York.
New York.
We went to,
And the date was?
well, I don't know. We went from there to Fort Bragg to discharge.
Okay.
We didn't spend no time. We went right off the boat right on to Fort Bragg.
Okay.
Now we came back on a little old merchant ship called the SS Aiken Victory. That was the name of the ship we came back on. Another little old merchant ship. Nothing luxury. Of course, before you was loading up to go out of Fort Dixon on that ship, clerk, the company clerk, a battery clerk, he had a typewriter in one hand.